The question was, how did I feel, or what did we do, or how we did it? Flew into England, and where? Actually, it was in Carlisle. That's a part of the Westmoreland area of Scotland in England. Well, as we were flying down, and we saw that what happened in Germany, and when we come to England, we all felt very high for a simple reason. For the first time, we are in a free country which does not interfere with us. We landed in Carlisle, and went finally, and cars were waiting, and help were waiting, and nurses were waiting for us. They had a table for food, and we let off. That was the first thing we wanted to do, is to sit down and eat something. And they were so nice, and they were all around that. And that didn't last too long. About three or 4 hours later, a bus came and picked us up, and we went the other way around. We went to England. Well, we wound up in a place called the certain parts of England, which is called Windermere. Mm-hmm. It's called after the name of the lake. It's Windermere Lake. It's one of the nicest places in England. Again, the same thing. We were trying to be fed into drinks, and so our nurses came over, check out whether we are right or not all right. In my case, I felt fine. I never had any problems. I got off the plane, I looked around where I was, and I didn't kiss the floor. I was smiling, and then people were taking pictures and photography and so on. And that was the beginning. When it became a little later, they took us in to certain houses. And when they opened up the doors from those houses, we were shocked. Each one of us had an apartment for ourselves, or a place to stay. In that room, there was water and showering and everything. It used to be a place for the English, not actors, for the Air Force. Mm-hmm. But they up to we came, and they retreated because the war was finished, and we got all this. A beautiful little room, windows, linen, carpets, and this was something very hard to understand. Why we got that and why not other people. But we did not complain. We undressed ourselves and we went to sleep. We were awful tired. We flew in from Prague over England to Westmoreland to come back. So we have had it. We took a shower and we went to sleep, and this was the beginning of the first day.
So on the next morning, after your first day,
when we got up in the morning,
mm-hmm.
we were supposed to go to the place where we ate breakfast. That was also a big place where the pilots were living, but we didn't walk. We marched. We were not used to walk because in concentration camp you always marched. And we made certain remarks to each other. You are not walking right, you're not walking right, you're supposed to walk right. We still had the thoughts of the concentration camp. But it didn't take long. something like 3-4 weeks, we started to being ourselves. We knew that we don't have to march, we can walk. Well, as things started happening with us, people came from all over to greet us, and very astute people came down to see us, because we were something like a novelty. Here are the children of the concentration camp. Here are the people who have read about us. Here came teachers to see what they can do for us. But it turned out to be we did not need any help. That we already had help prepared for us. And most of them were teachers to begin with, and most of them were the people of the Kindertransport from Germany. Therefore, we immediately started to get very friendly with them, because they were more or less on our plateau. First day we went to eat. We come to the place, long plates, we all sit straight ahead, and they're sending food down. And as they pass the food, we pick up the plate and put underneath the table, because I wanted to have it for next day or tomorrow or today. And this was going on and all till one of the madraha, they call it. She said, "Where are all the plates? We put down 600 plates and then we only have 500 people." Well, they discovered that we were hiding the food. But it's not funny, because we were not accustomed to those things. We wanted to put away food for tomorrow, or we are going to get food to begin with. And she came over to the table and said, "Children, there's plenty of food. You don't have to hide it. If you want more, you're going to get." And slowly, everything took a certain amount of time to normalize. And we walked away from the table, we talked what got good food and what the people were doing for us. And we became very, very friendly to everybody. But we couldn't speak English. So they started to teach us English. I am, you are, they are, and so on and on. And we had a Rabbi Weiss. He says, "Boys, how about you coming out to play football with me?" And we went out. And the time went on about a month or two, and we became normalized. Whatever he wanted, we did, and what we wanted, he did the same thing. But the main thing, we got support. And the fear of tomorrow disappeared. We knew we were going to get food. We knew we were going to get shoes. We knew we were going to get so and so and so and so. And we said to ourselves, we don't need it. I remember I accumulated 5 pairs of pants. And I see the one who was in charge said, "What are you holding 6 pairs of pants?" "Because I don't have it tomorrow." "Well, then you have to clean it and press it and so forth." And then we started to smile. We started to laugh. We took out our football and played. We played ping pong. All through, because the British and the Jewish British supplied all this here. So that's how it started. They got a beautiful lake over there. I decided to swim it all the way from one side to another. And I was applauded. And the thing of the concentration camp, slowly, we stopped thinking about the concentration camp, but we started to think about two items. What is our future? And we better start learning English. Most of us had a 5th grade education. Most of us we were still a little wild. Most of us lost our parents and everybody around us. Not here. So we are liberated. We are whatever it is. But we are without parents, without friends, and we are family. And this started working a little bit about us. We stopped thinking about ourselves and thinking what our future is going to be. And we went into the class. And we started to say, I am, you are, they are, and so forth. Even the English language is very difficult to understand or to learn because your alphabet is different than ours. When I say an A is an A, or an R. If I say father, it's an R, not further. And the main thing, the people around us, the great help we got. But remember, out of the 520 or 530, there was a lot of sick children, sick people. Some of them had dysentery, some of them they were sick, and some other diseases. The toll took out for 5 years in concentration camp. Nothing was right for us. We felt, why are we alive? And their parents, what happened to all this here? We can't go home anymore because there is no home. And living in Poland, you didn't dare going back because in many cases they killed survivors. Me, I am a lucky guy. Here I am, if I want to do something, I do. I have a very good attitude to people, but still it hurt, the pain was still there. And now I'm around 84, but you know something, the pain is still there. Not for myself, it's for the people who perished. Now if you're looking at us and you're looking at me, I'm normal. And I am normal. But the word of Holocaust is, in the dictionary, it says, out of the fire. So how normally we are? Now as we got to 2011, and they're dying off like a normal, like the soldiers who came back from the front, like the flyers who were getting from the height. Me, again, as I said, you're looking at the camera, and I say, I am pretty well. I am, because I always think ahead what I have to do and what I want to do. Now, that's about England. From England we went to Scotland and it repeated the same thing. We got a beautiful mansion. I don't know what he was, but he not willed us. He gave it for the duration of time. And it was just Loch Lomond in the mountains, and we got bicycles and we ran. And it's unbelievable how fast we learned the English language. for a simple reason. We had some beautiful girls, and all of us are between 17 and 18, and they do not speak Polish or any other language, and we started to talk English. And I would say, Father, that within a year, all of us conversed in English. And that finished England and Scotland. But whoever wants to see a beautiful country, go to Scotland. It's something, when you leave Scotland, you feel like going back. Like for instance, I wanted to get on the boat, not the boat, excuse me. I wanted to go on the train. The trainman didn't want to take money. He said, "You are from the boys." On the trolley car, on the movie, nobody wanted to take any money because we had some pocket money. Not much, but enough for the week. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted to take any money. When they heard that we are Holocaust survivors, but also the building which we were staying in the place was named Kadros. And they said, "You live in Kadros? You live on top of the..." Yes. No money. We don't take you. Professors from the University of Glasgow, the professors from Edinburgh used to come down and tutor us. And the more people trusted us, the more we trusted them. And there was a very nice bond between us and them. We also played football with them, and so on.
So tell me, once you were in Scotland and you were learning English, there's other things that you all must have learned. How did you decide while you were there how you may be trained to do work once you might leave Scotland or go on to another place, what you might do for a future? Was there training for trades and other things for you there?
All right. The question is, what would we do as we time passed? Number one, in the ghetto, I was working woodwork. That was my job in the ghetto. I started when I was 8 years old, and I worked till the ghetto was closed. And also, we looked for the future. In my case, I knew that I have two relatives in America. They're both on my aunts, and I wanted to find them. I wasn't so eager to go to America, but I wanted to show them that I am alive, because I am the only one from 54 people, and especially the two aunts. And the same token, my grandmother died in America. So I felt I have a future over there, I have a future over here. But I didn't have family over here, in England. So I rode away, and most of the boys, most of the people did the same thing I did it. I'm not unique. They send away to cousins, to whatever. And they got replies, and I didn't get it for a long time any reply. It was a little depressing. So I took out 100 postcards, and I wrote down what I was thinking, that those are my relatives' name. One was Broad, they spelled B-R-O-D, B-R-D-D, and so on. And I said, I'm going to try to send it to churches, to temples, and to wherever I can. I want to find them and tell them that I'm alive. Well, one Saturday, I'm sitting and eating, and all of a sudden, the postman comes in. He calls names, and I'm saying, I said, there's nothing for me. But how wrong I was. First thing he calls up Victor Breitburg, and another Victor Breitburg, and another one, a whole pile. And I'm reading, and tears are coming down my eyes, because this is the only relatives I have who are alive. And all of their relatives are dead. Well, in a way, I really didn't want to go to America. I didn't want to go to another Christian land where I'll be persecuted. I really wanted to go to Israel. But you know what? My aunt wrote to me. She says, "Dear Victor, you're the only one alive. And why don't you come to America?" I said two things. I'm afraid for America, the prejudices. I read about it in England, about America. And at the same time, I won an award to go to college. And when I wrote to my aunt about it, she says, "What are you worrying? We have plenty good colleges if you want to go in." And it was very hard to get into Israel at that time. There was an embargo with the boats and everything else. And I let myself being talked in. And I took a boat from, I'm trying to remember where the boat came in. It's one of the country. And my aunt sent me money, and was on my way to America. With, of course, about 2 friends, 3 friends. We all took the same boat. And it took us 3 weeks to go. It was a small boat jumping all over the ocean. And we couldn't get into the port because the storm was very strong. We went out of America and came back. But when I came, there was my aunt, her children, other ones, and I looked at them. I knew them from photography when I was a child. And my grandmother died in America. And she always sent us the pictures of herself and for the children, and sent money to us to help us in Poland. And when I stepped down and I took around, everybody there cried. And I said, "I do have a family. And I'm not alone anymore." I'll stop now for a while and we'll talk about it.
Oh, that while you were in England, you had mentioned earlier that one of the things that caught your eye was all the pretty girls. So tell us about one girl in particular, and her name was Margaret. Tell us about Margaret.
Well, we were transferred from Scotland to England. And it's a working town. It's nothing spectacular about it. It was strictly for us to learn trades or something else, which I didn't have to. It was one of these days, it was snowing, and I decided to go down to town. They had their dancing. So I said, I might as well do some dancing. Now, we are talking now at least 8 months after the war. And I stopped, there was a train, and the train stopped, and we couldn't cross. And there was a girl with a dog, and the next thing you know, the dog was running around my leg and her legs, and I made a joke. I says, now we are one. You and I. And she started laughing. She was a beautiful girl. She was, matter of fact, she served during the war in the army, the British Army. And we opened up ourselves, and we walked a little longer, and she says, where are you going? I said, I'm going down to the dance. She said, yes, it's a very nice dance, and you find some nice girls over there too. I said to her, I found one. So she said, you did? I said, you. And she says, no, I have a lot of things to do. I said, look, why don't you come up sometimes? There's about 60 guys and girls and so. And she says, hey, that's a good idea, I will. Not knowing, she came up with a nice, beautiful car and looked for me. And she says, well, I came up. Do you know how to dance? I says, no, I don't know how to dance. She says, I'll teach you. And we danced, and we talked, and the evening was finished, and I said good night, and she said good night. And this girl, a couple of days later, she comes again. How about going out with me? And I look at her, and I said, she's beautiful and rich, and she's asking me to go out. I didn't have too much faith of myself. You know, we weren't so sure of ourselves, of anything. And there stays a beautiful girl, and the rest of the boys looking at her, keeping their tongues out, and she comes over and dances with me. Except there was one thing. I saw she was wearing a cross. And I knew I'm not going to get married here. And I'm not going to. And I started to feel, what am I doing to this girl? And she fell more and more in love with me. The father had some kind of a big factories. She was an intelligent girl. And I started falling in love with her. And nobody talked about leaving. We didn't talk about anything else. And she got more, you know, every time we went out, I said, how lucky I am. A girl like this picks me. I didn't have enough faith that the kind of girl will come over to me and want me. But time passed different. I was able to speak English. I was able to dance. I had enough money to take her out because I started working in woodwork over there. And she started falling in love. And when the time came out that I had to leave England and going to America, her father came over to me, he says, why are you going to America? You can work in my place and you're going to be, you'll have a good position. I said, no, I want to go to America for a simple reason. People are waiting for me over there. And we broke off. And no, the point is, I really did not know how I feel about her and how much I love her. But this came along when I was in America, I started to feel missing care. But I couldn't go back to England. I couldn't do that. And I started feeling miserable in America. My cousin was living in the same apartment as I was living. There was a shortage of apartments, and my aunt and took me in to live there. And I didn't get too well off, not with my aunt, but with my cousin. She was nice and everything. I have no complaint. But I became an outgoing guy. When I said, first of all, she was preparing to send me to college, like she said. And I said, I'm going to Manhattan now. She says, you do what? You're going to get lost. I says, and Hilda, I will not get lost. And I left, but then I got some guilt, because she didn't want me to go, as simple as that. And I had the keys to the house, and I was going to go through the front, but I decided to go through the back. And while I'm opening the door, I hear the fight between my cousin and my aunt.
And which cousin was that?
Which cousin is? What the hell is the name? It was the cousin, she lived there.
If you don't remember,
it's my aunt.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
All of a sudden I forgot what her name is.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear her saying to her mother, you didn't have money to send me to high school. You didn't have money to send me to college. Now he comes in and you're going to send me to college?
Go ahead.
And I felt bad. And maybe the girl, I said to myself, maybe the girl is right. And I already was working, by the way. And I was making a salary. So I made myself believe I didn't hear anything, walked away, and came an hour later. And there was dinner time. I said, I want to tell you something. I changed my mind of going to a college. He said, I'm going to work. I got a nice position, I make some money, I can afford.
And where were you working at this time?
Not far away. It wasn't a big factory, it was a woodwork. As I learned woodwork in Germany, I might as well use it, which is, by the way, became very attractive to me. And I just made an announcement that I have no intention of going to college, I have to work. And that's, I think everybody was breathing a little better. Mm. And I also moved out, not far away from the place I was working. And the woman who, wasn't a woman, one of the workers said, my mother has a room, why don't you live over there? I looked at it, it was a nice room, not too much money, and I moved in, providing that she's not going to cook for me or anything else, or wash my laundry. Well, she didn't keep her word. Every morning I got up, there was breakfast. And I felt bad because she needed some money. And no, you can't go out without eating. So I ate. And I got very, very friendly with more people in the place I was working. And that was it, with the relation.
Do you remember the name of the factory that you worked at?
Oh?
Do you remember the name of the factory?
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It has a name. Let me think a minute.
Sure, sure.
Let me think a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It's they were making wooden fireplaces, something like that. The Acro fireplace.
Acro?
Now you look. You know, you're not doing justice to me. We are talking now about 70, 40 years, more than that.
Oh, I know. But
and you're telling me what was the name.
If we can remember the name, it'll just be more interesting when people read it. Because someone might read that name in the book and go, I worked there. I remember that guy.
Right.
See?
Right.
And was this in Brooklyn, Queens, or in Manhattan? Where was the factory? Was it in Brooklyn, Queens?
Brooklyn.
Or in Brooklyn. Okay.
Off Pitkin Avenue.
Okay. See, now you're remembering. Okay. Off Pitkin Avenue. So now you're settled into your apartment, and you believe it was at Mrs. Frischman's home, and you're working at the Acro fireplace. And so what's the next thing that occurs in your journey in America as you're working at this particular place and things move forward for you?
On an overall, I did not have any problem whatsoever with the people of America, because I had the language, I had the English language. I remember the time I was sitting on the table and reading the newspaper, and he looks, a man comes over, and he says, "You're reading the New York paper?" I says, "Yeah." "You know how to read?" "Yes." It's a great paper you're reading. Where did you learn?" I said, "Sir, I read them and I learned them in England. But this paper is not the greatest paper. Mine was Manchester Guardian." He got embarrassed and so on, because he did not know what the Manchester Guardian is. But the bosses, the people, they gave me more than I was asked. And that was the beginning. From there, I decided I want to go get a little more education, which was a high school. And I went to register myself for the evening, like most refugees do, most newcomers. Well, I was doing very well, and one day the teacher calls out in the class, "I need somebody to go for a certain place on the school." And I asked him, "What is it?" He says, "Well, it's school activities." And he didn't get any orders. He comes to me, he says, "How about you, Mr. Breitburg? How would you like to go?" And I said, "I just came to the United States. What do I know what activities you're talking about?" He says, "You'll do all right. Go up, register on it, and I'll give you points for it." I said, "Okay." I went up, and everybody had to make a speech, which I haven't got the slightest idea today what I said. And the next thing you know, I was elected vice president. No, let me hold it back. when the election was going off and finished, and they called up people, I had somewhere back saying, I'm voting for Mr. Breitburg. And I look around, I don't know anybody there. And I was elected vice president.
Now this was the vice president of your class at night school?
I'm trying to remember what it was called.
Okay. That's good. That's
I'm
all
trying
right.
to hold it back.
That's good.
What the hell this activity calls? Before we finish, you'll have it.
But for this group, whatever it was,
right.
They were going to have officers, and you were being nominated to be the vice president.
Well, anyway, when I heard this voice and everything was finished, I walked over and I thanked this woman for voting for me. And that's a woman I married for 60 years. And I had a very lovely life, and she was a very educated girl.
And her name was?
Yes.
Her name was?
She died.
What was her name?
Lucille.
You didn't tell us her name yet.
Okay. It was Lucille.
There you go.
We lived 60 years together. Unfortunately, last year she passed away. It was cancer. And it was down in Florida. So, that's how life runs. But I did have nice 60 years. I was very progressive all through those years. I was making very good money there. I also owned part of a business we called Prestige Cabinet in New York and Long Island. Very successful. We lived before that in Long Island. I had a nice house which I could do anything I want. And the sadness of the Holocaust is still there because I don't want to forget it. It's not there. I am very friendly to people. I talk to people. But you can't forget the Holocaust because in one day I lost 54 people to the crematoriums. I'm sorry, I'm talking a little sadness now. And wherever I went, from one concentration to another, somehow an angel was on my back. I was never abused by the SS or anybody, and I don't know why. I'm just professing there's maybe something in me they saw which I didn't, because I got some good job and a lot of time I got food. And because mind getting food, I shared with other friends. But still, I say to myself, why me? Why was I selected in Auschwitz? And I was working with horses, which gave me enough food to eat. When I went, and then I was one with pigs. And I gave a share to the pig and a share for myself. And I have this type of luck. And with sadness, of course, that I'm lucky. I built a factory in Freeport, Long Island, with 2 other partners. We were 30 years in business together, and we have a nice size of money for ourselves. I'm not a millionaire, but I do have money. And wherever I go, people respect me, and I respect them. I learned a long time be nice to your next door neighbor and he'll be nice to me too. And that's my memo. I'm very helpful in my building, which I am. It's a condo. If they need any help, I will help them, no matter what they are and what it is, what time it is. I have two lovely children, both educated. The younger one is called Myra Breitburg, and the older one is Denise Breitburg. Myra teaches in the college. My older one is the senior scientist of marine biology, Smithsonian Institute, and she just became federalized. I still say I am lucky. It just didn't come out. They worked, I worked, and I'm very satisfied where I am and what I'm doing. I thank you very much for interviewing with me. Bye.
All right, tell us now, we know you've met Lucille.
At one point.
Before we go on and talk a little bit more about your relationship with Lucille leading up to your marriage, tell me what your impressions were about, if there was anything at all, what didn't you like about America? Was there anything about America that you did not like when you first came here?
Well, I came in 1947 over here, and I learned in England about the prejudice, what was going on, slavery, and other things going on. Well, when I came to America, I saw it on first myself. I saw people yelling at the black people, that the dark ones and so forth. I saw discrimination, that they could not go one place or another. Being a Holocaust survivor, that's the first thing I saw in America. And it bothered me impossibly. I said, if I had money, I would have gone back to England, but I didn't. And I was married now. I cannot understand the slavery. I cannot understand what makes one black person being worse than he is a white man. Each one deserves a chance. Each one deserves a life, and each kid deserves all the education they can get. Every time you cut something like this off, you're cutting the richness from America away. What people are, they are. But I never had any education, and the discrimination over here, and I couldn't stand it. And I saw it was all type of people, whether Jewish or non-Jewish. I remember I had a cousin, and she just came in, and we took her out to a place where the kids can play, the kids can play. And there was a woman sitting on that bench, and my cousin comes over, and she walks away from it. I said, why are you walking away? You said you're tired. What is it? I don't like black people. And I looked at this woman, and words couldn't come out my mouth. Her name was Reisel. And I said, Reisel, why are you discriminated? Do you have anything to say? But she's bad or good or indifferent? P.S. She just did not like him. And this girl was 6 years in the concentration camp. Went through, and I told her that. You were just in the concentration camp. Isn't there any difference what you're doing, what Hitler tried to do? She walked away, and for a long time I didn't even talk to her. But I've witnessed that all over. I was going to New York. Wherever a black man sits down, a white does not. Why? Thank God Eisenhower lets now children to go to our schools. I cannot understand those things. I cannot understand slavery. I cannot understand what the Indians went through. I read about it, I know about it, but it still stays in my mind. Why? Because the reason I'm saying that, because I lived through those things, and I didn't want anybody to live. Now stop.
Now let's go back and have a little bit more of a discussion about how you met Lucille at Jefferson High School at night and how your relation began to develop, because eventually the two of you were married. So let's hear some of that story.
Well, as I told you previously, I met a nice girl by the name of Lucille Edelman. And she was the one who actually voted I should become the president, vice president. And I really didn't know what the heck I was doing. But I guess she had a certain faith in me. And as we I finished the night school, I used to walk down a certain area in where she was living. And we started talking. She was a nice girl. She was educated, very well educated, finished high school, did not go to college. The parent did not have enough money. And her mother died when she was only 9 years old. But we had some bond between us. We each had some death. And I was talking about the Holocaust, and she was talking how her mother died of a stroke, very young. She was only 9 years old. She had a sister, mentally retarded. And the more we talked, the more I became drawn to her. Because I saw also that she was working with other organizations to help people. She was working, and she also drew me in to those things. And a year passed, and I was not so sure that I had money or was doing or anything and so on. P.S. One Christmas, I was working with her, and I said to her, "Lucille, how would you like to get married with me?" She moved back. You're talking about the real marriage? I says, yes, I'm talking about the real marriage. And I also was tired to go out from one girl to another, from one girl, yeah. I said, I was looking too. I was looking at her over, I looked at her, I liked so many things about her. Then all of a sudden I says, you know what, maybe this is the girl who I want to marry. I forgot about Margaret because Margaret was a forgotten item. We corresponded for a while, and then I don't know what happened to correspondence, but I never got any more letters. which it bothered me, but I knew there was no future in her. Lucille was something different. She was going on a Jewish clubs and other clubs and so far. She had a lot of life. And as I said before, something, you see, I looked at her. Here is a girl. The father does not help her out too much. She had a sister, mentally retarded, and works very, very hard. And something drew me to her, that maybe this girl needs a little help, and maybe I am the one, and maybe she might be my right wife. And Christmas time, I had a little couple drinks in the shop I was working. I came to her and I said, Lucille, it's time enough now. We're going for 3 years already. I think you love me and I love you. On June 8th, we got married, spent our honeymoon in Canada, and we lived a very good life. And I was able to do for her whatever she wanted me to do, financially and everything else. We got 2 children, one which was born 1952, and the other one was born 1954. Both of them are in the educational, and both are very successful. And I think I mentioned what Denise did. So that's it. Unfortunately, I moved to Florida, and she complained of stomach pain. The doctors could not find anything wrong, and she continuously complained. And when they took an MRI and scanner, she had cancer on the liver and the cancer on the pancreas. She died about 3 weeks later. But one thing I'm very proud, just before she died, she said, Victor, you gave me everything ever I wanted. But 3 days later, she was dead.